So, if I hand over to yourself, Jamie and Claire, if you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us all about the wonder that is GA4.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
I'll do my quick intro first because I'm the least important person. I'm Jamie. I work for Code Computer Love. I'm the head of analytics and experimentation. And I work with Claire. Claire's in my team. Claire's one of my lead analysts, whatever the title is. Claire is the first person in the last 15 years of working that I've found who knows GA better than I do. The first person in that amount of time. Usually I'm the GA person in the room. I get roped into things. You'd be the GA technical guy. She's the first person who's ever like out GA'd me. It's amazing. I'll let Claire do her own intro.
Cool. So hi, I'm Claire. I'm not sure if you can, I don't think it's focusing the camera on me because I'm using Jamie's speaker, but you can find me in the little people boxes. So I'm a senior web analyst for Code Computer Love. So I spend a lot of my time setting up tracking for GA4, reporting on testing using GA4 data, and essentially just reporting on website performance. So today we're going to go through a few things like ways that you can use GA4 to improve your understanding of your own website, and also to give you some ideas of what you can do with the data to try and like maximize conversions. So just as a brief overview, some of the things that we've been looking into as to how GA4 can be useful to you guys is to improve a few things. So firstly, to increase donations, to increase volunteer numbers, and then as well get more social shares and petition signatures. So with the nature of the charity sector, obviously you have a lot of different users who have almost competing needs in terms of what they're going to your website for. So it gives you like multiple user journeys, and you need to make sure that your website is tailored to make it as easy as possible for each of those different journeys to get the users to where they need to go. So that's what we're going to look into today. So just a brief overview of what GA4 actually is. So it's a free website tracking platform. So you can track anything from events, pages, views, exit rate, journeys. So you can track if users go on a specific journey from one page to another page, or if they complete events in a specific order. And you can also split that data by a lot of different parameters. Some useful ones are obviously channel, device, page, and this gives you the ability to understand like different segments of users, as well as different ways users get to the website and how it all interacts together and turns into more conversions. So just a few things that you can track on the website. You can look into the amount of people that complete a search. You can look at how many people, and also as a percentage of total users, either in general or on that specific page, have clicked a button, and the average amount of people or users that scroll to the bottom of the page. So all this information can give you an understanding of what buttons work effectively and whether you've got content on the page that's not being seen. And it gives you a bit of an idea of how to like structure and restructure the website to try and make it as easy as possible for users to do what they've come to your website to do. So one thing that's great about GA4 compared to Universal Analytics is that it gives you a way of customizing the tracking specifically to you. So you can have as many event names, bespoke event names as you need, but also up to 25 custom parameters to go along with each event. The way this makes it a lot better is that you can have so many different bits of information to correspond to one event. So for example, you might have a donate now button on your website, but this could be in different locations. It could have a different call to action. So it could say donate now or donate today. And you can use all these parameters to split that donate now click event by different things. So you can work out, do users click the button at the top more than in the hero image, or does this CTA work better than that CTA? And it gives you a way of sending loads of extra pieces of information, but you still retain like the top level ability to report on just clicks for that specific button. Another thing that's quite useful and we find is helpful in determining whether or not each element on the page is really doing something in terms of getting the users to where they need to be, is looking at click rate. So you can set up custom events for when users view a specific element on the page, as well as when they actually click it. So then you can work out of the 100 users that viewed this button, how many of them actually clicked it, and you can compare, okay, so this button gets like a 40% click rate, but this one only gets a 20% click rate. And it gives you an idea of how to like streamline the website essentially. So you're only giving users CTAs and things to do that like gets them exactly where they need to be without overcrowding or confusing the user journey.
Something that's useful in that Claire's set up for a client of ours is often you might look at the total number of clicks of a button, for example, and divide it by the total page views to work out the click rate. But it can be misleading because if the button's at the bottom of the page, then a lot of people didn't see it. So it doesn't tell you how appealing the button was or the content around the button was. It just tells you that it was at the bottom of the page. What Claire described when you track viewing the button, so when it's scrolled into someone's browser window and clicking it, you're getting more of an engagement rate from viewing, and it helps you see if there's something at the bottom of your page that far more people interact with than at the top, you can move it up to the top. So we've used this in conversion rate optimization with clients as well, to help us understand content at the bottom that should move up. Just giving you a breather.
Thanks. So another thing that makes GA4 quite useful is the ability to combine both data from your website and any apps that you have. So we know that particularly if you have an app, users are most likely going to use both the website and the app. And having all the data in one place allows you to deduplicate users. So you can see one single user, but both on your website and on your app. And it also gives you the ability to compare how users interact with your website or the app, depending on the platform that they're on. So you might find that you acquire more users on your website, but you actually get higher conversion rate on the app. So it gives you a different way of looking at the data, and it's a bit more of a single user journey for anyone that has both an app and a website. And it's a really good thing to use. So yeah. We have as well, GA4 is powered by machine learning. So they try to make it as easy as possible for you to understand changes in your own data. And that's where this insights and recommendations sections comes up. So you can get recommendations for things that they might think you could mark as a conversion. And you also get insights when your traffic or a particular metric has either increased or decreased dramatically. This is a nice place to go just to get a general overview of how the website's been performing in the last week or two. And it also gives you the ability to set up custom insights. And custom insights can be emailed directly to you. And I think this is quite a useful feature. So when you have multiple agencies working within the same account, say you've got a marketing agency, some sort of developers, what can happen is there's always a chance of human error kind of messing things up. And I noticed we had this one client and they'd accidentally removed the GTM script from the website, but no one had been checking the Google Analytics for data. And I think it took about 10 days for someone to notice that no data had been coming through to the platform. So if you set up custom insights, you can get an email to say, if traffic drops to my website by about 50%, give me an email and let me know. And it just gives you that almost like real-time response. So you can say, oh, I've just been notified that since yesterday, my traffic's dropped 50%. And you can go in and start looking at why that might be. So maybe there might be tracking removal, or there might be some sort of error in the site. And these automatic insights, they give you a way of responding to that without missing out on any data that could get lost. You can also link a lot of different Google products to Google Analytics to get a bit of extra data within the platform. So different products that you can link include Search Console, DV360, Google Ads, Google Play, and it gives you a place to keep all of your data, and you can access all of it within the same place. and you can use data from one platform alongside another platform. So some of the benefits of product linking, it allows you to share information from one product to another. So for example, if you're linking Google Analytics with Google Ads, you can look at, on a campaign level, not only conversion rate and click rate, but you can also see things like how long was a session, did they view so many pages, how many of the users that clicked the campaign actually bounced. So it gives you a bit more information to work out whether the campaign is successful or not. Because you could have a campaign that gets loads of clicks, but if about 60% of the users that click the campaign then just bounce and leave, you know that the campaign's either not really targeting the right users or it's not showing them the correct information on the landing page. So it's quite useful to link all the products together. With Search Console as well, it gives you additional organic insights. So you get the queries that people have used to find you and the landing pages that they land on. Another useful feature of GA4 is audiences. So audiences can be used for multiple things. Firstly, for reporting, but secondly, for targeting. And you can create audiences that will continuously add new users to the audience once they meet the audience criteria. So you might have an audience that looks for users that have signed a petition and they've also viewed another petition page, which gives you a signal that these users might be willing to sign more petitions, or maybe they might be more likely to donate than users that haven't done that. So anytime a user goes onto your website and signs a petition, then looks at another petition, they'll be added to your audience. You can then export this audience to platforms like DV360 and Google Ads, and you can use that to target and retarget users, maybe with like a specific campaign, or to bring them back to the petition page that they viewed to try and increase the amount of signs you get or increase donations.
And then I'm going to take over at this bit because this is some actual client work we did. It wasn't actually specifically in GA4, it was pre-GA4, but exactly what we did here is doable in GA4. And I just wanted to give an interesting example of something we've done with a client. So we worked with Amnesty International a few years ago, and we put a lot of emphasis with them on measurement. For the reasons that Claire talked about earlier, they have a very complex site and organizational structure. They have a lot of stakeholders, and they have multiple goals that they want to achieve with their customers, if you like, or the visitors to the website. So we made them we did a big breakdown of the different activities they wanted customers to take on the site. And some of them were very straightforward. Fill in a form, for example. That was quite easy to do, easy to track. There are tools in, I think you can do it out of the box in GA4 with forms, can't you?
You
Form
can.
tracks, yeah. So you can do form tracking. As long as your form is quite simple, you can usually do form tracking out of the box with GA4. It's just ticking a thing that says track when someone's completed a form. I think we did a custom one because they had different types of form. So we had a general form, but we also had a signed petition version of it, which was signing a petition, which was a unique version of their form. When somebody donated, we tracked donation events as well. And then we were able to report that back to the team at Amnesty International, and they had different stakeholders who were interested in those different aspects. But something that in this room, in this group of people, I don't think is unique to Amnesty International, but at the time in our client base was unique to them, is one of their goals was simply sharing their message. So we had a session with them to try and figure out the best way of tracking sharing the message. And there were obvious ones like literally sharing it. So people sharing, they had share buttons on the site. But another one was, can you go, yeah, to the next one, thank you, was tracking when people scrolled. Now, back in the day, we had to do this manually, and we had different levels of scroll, and then there was a slight nuance to it, which I'll talk about in a second. You can now do this, again, out of the box. So you can install GA4, or you can put it on via Google Tag Manager, however is easiest. And then you can turn on scroll depth tracking, and you can see how many users got to, by default, I think it goes 25, 50, 100.
75,
75,
90,
90, 100. See, knows it better than I do. So we did this with them, and we did this, and then we combined, and someone's actually asked about it, Hotjar versus other tools, which is a great question, and I will come back to it. We'll do that at the end. We combined Hotjar and GA to understand to try and define where we considered a natural drop-off point was for users and where they had read an article. And we effectively came up with it sounded so much more accurate than it, it was. You're still getting to mostly to the end of an article, but it was like, if you were 63% down, we considered that you had read the article, and we turned a percent scroll into effectively a binary metric, a conversion. And it was just really interesting. And we just thought it was a really nice example for you guys, because I think a lot of you will want to know people are reading your content and that message is getting across. And then I said earlier that we did a lot of tracking work and measurement work with them. That culminated in this quite fancy looking, and we wheeled this out to show off nice measurement frameworks and measurement dashboards. This kind of puzzle dashboard thing that we made that has their weekly and week on week and year on year metrics, and it's the greens and the oranges and the grays represent it's up or it's flat or it's sort of trending downwards or it's quite far down. The reason this photo is 2 screens, by the way, is the way we're set up. We have product teams, and those teams are dedicated to 2 to 3 clients usually. And then they have dashboards for the clients on the screen. So this was at the end of a table, and the product team worked here, and I sat here, and I could see this at any point. And then when we'd get on calls with the client, we'd share it with them. They had an access too. And I think for a while they had it up on their wall. I think we shared this as like, it's amazing, the client's got the dashboard on the wall, it's fantastic. This was a great way to give all the stakeholders a quick view of all the important metrics. And people could see, and week on week, they'd check it and go, oh, something's happening here. Oh, hang on, did you launch that campaign last week? Oh, I think it's affecting bounce rate or whatever. Combine that with alerting that Claire's just talked about, and you've basically got an always on view of your website and how people are using it.
So how we go about defining, tracking and measuring goals. Really with GA4, if I'm honest, the more things that you track, the better. But whether or not you report on those on a daily, weekly, monthly basis really depends. But having the data there in case you want to look into the granular details of maybe different elements on the site, how users interact with them, it's always really useful to have. But it's important not to overload your regular reporting. So I think a good way of conducting regular reporting is first to define the goals, and goals will be like the main conversion points of your users. So any forms you want to fill in, any way of collecting details, stuff like volunteer signups, petition shares, things like that. But it's also important to track the steps that lead users up to each one of those goals, because whilst tracking conversion rate is a great metric to see how well is the website performing, in order to improve conversion rate, we also need to understand all of the steps a user will take to actually reach that goal. So if we take a donation, first of all, the user might view a page which has got some sort of campaign. They might click the donate button, then they need to start filling out the donation form, then they need to complete the donation form, and then finally actually donate the money. So that's 5 steps, and you might find that you get a lot of people that view the page and not many people start the donation journey, or maybe a lot of people start the donation journey but they drop off halfway through. So tracking each step gives you an understanding of not only how well is that goal converting, but also is there anywhere, we call it pain points in the user journey, where more people are dropping off, you've got a higher drop-off rate. So just for your overall reporting, looking at conversion rate is great, but in terms of optimization and how to get more people to convert in the first place, you need to look at each step, and then you can try and use that data to say, well, lots of people are dropping off between start and complete the form, so maybe we make the form shorter or we change the form, and you can test things like that to see if improving one step of the user journey leads to more conversions overall.
just making another call back, well, to add weight and to make another call back to your question, Stephen. The weight is, I've run conversion rate optimization programs for about 15 years, and I don't think there's ever been a time when I haven't had a funnel. So it's almost the default for me is I need to understand the whole journey from start to finish. And then usually I will have 4 or 5 funnels because people start in different places. So the end might be the same, the checkout journey, but I want to know if people start on this landing page, how they convert, or if they come in directly to a hotel, for example, a hotel's client. And then to your point, Stephen, on Hotjar, what we tend to do is, this is where we mix the two. So we would look at GA and it tells us where the problem is. And then we would go into Hotjar and look at literal video recordings of people. There's also full story, and we've used what's it called? Content Squared, Square, just one square. In the past, which is like heat maps on steroids. It's incredible. And we'll use that to help us understand. If you go straight into something like a Hotjar, you can end up, and I've done this, spending literally hours watching replays of people using the site.
That's what I did. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, exactly.
It's weirdly, it draws you in, doesn't it? And you're sat there doing,
surprising.
What are you doing that for? That's insane.
I know.
It's a mouse moving. Just for the people who don't know, literally anonymously, you watch the people's mouses move around on the screen.
Yeah.
One of the things that's we do a lot with our software, obviously, to try and make it more efficient and make it, just make it better UX UI. But one of the things I always think about is when do you look at the analytics, the actual hard data, how many people have opened the page, things that we're talking about, and at what point do you go down even further and actually watch the mouse moving around? But like you say, it is a combination. Then you're saying, Jamie, you kind of use the analytics to home in on a particular area where there's a drop off, for example, and then you just look at the recordings there. Is that right? Precisely.
Then I jump into Hotjar. We'd have a heat map ideally. We'd have session recordings. And then what I like to do, and a couple of people at my team, because we really like speaking to customers, is we run surveys as well. So we might run a survey. So a great example recently is a client who sell villa holidays. They had a huge drop off at the final step of their funnel. And we went, actually, Hotjar sort of failed us, sort of didn't. We went into Hotjar and saw people clicking the payment button and then disappearing. We realized they've got a third-party payment gateway that is extremely dated. And we all got into it, and it's horrible. Looks like a teenager has made it in their bedroom. No trust. So then we ran a survey asking people. It sort of opened as you clicked it in the background. And then we said, did you or did you not purchase? And if it was did not, why not? And a lot of people said, didn't trust the payment option. Looks like a child has made it. So the blend of the two tools is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
All right, carry on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So a lot of the time you'll probably have your general reporting, your main goals, your traffic, how many users come to the site on a regular basis, maybe week on week or month on month and stuff like that. But GA4 has a lot of different advanced analysis techniques that you can use. And this is where tracking as much as possible really does benefit, because you might find that you don't really need the data all the time, but maybe you want to really look specifically at a certain page and find out how that page is performing. So we can first look at component level reporting. So where on the page things are, click rates for things, whether people view and click them. And you can create segments as well to say, well, if people click this element, are they more or less likely to convert? Or if people view this page, are they more or less likely to fill in this form? Which gives you a bit more of an idea of how viewing certain pages and interacting with certain elements actually impacts the user journey. So we can see on the screen here, it's just got a picture of 2 reports. So the first one underneath is the funnel, which shows you the drop off from beginning the checkout to finally purchasing. And the one just on top of that is just a quick comparison of 2 segments. So we created a segment for any sessions where someone has viewed a blog page, and we wanted to compare that with any sessions where there was no blog page views at all. Even though we have way more sessions where people don't view a blog page, what you can see is the average session duration for sessions with a blog view is way higher than those without it. So if you're trying to increase the amount of time people spend on site, you can compare different things like this. And we can also look at it in a different way. So if someone views a blog page versus they don't, are they more likely to convert? Were they more likely to share something? And it helps you understand not just where to direct people to. So is it important to try and direct people to land on this page? Will that improve conversions? But also how to organize your user journey. So we had a client recently and they had loads of sale banners on their site, but they all directed you immediately to a contact form. And we found that the contact form was getting loads of views, but barely anyone was filling it out. And I think what was happening was people were being sent in to complete the form too early. So they hadn't had enough time to go around the website, maybe understand a bit more, read about the client and get, a feel for the client and actually get in a headspace where they're ready to fill that form in. So creating segments like that kind of helps you understand how to lay out your website to make sure that not only are users getting to the form as easily as possible, but they're being provided all of the information that they need to make that decision to actually fill the form out. This is a quick overview of the analysis techniques that you're provided in GA4. So this is the Explore section of GA4. So you have a free form analysis, and this is quite good because it lets you combine multiple dimensions and metrics. So you can split something by 3 dimensions. You can add segments to compare how did new users compare to returning users, how did users from the UK compare to users from Italy. And you can split it by loads of different things, but you have quite a lot of other techniques as well. So the path exploration is really good. Not only can you see where do people go after they land on the site, so if they land on the home page, what are the top pages they go to next, but you can actually see what do people do before they get to a certain page as well. So you might think that users are getting to your form pages through one main journey, but if you look at this report, it could make you see that actually people are coming in through different journeys. So it gives you more of an idea of which pages are leading up to those main form pages. It gives you more of an idea of which pages to look at when you're reporting. We have other techniques as well, such as a segment overlap, which I think is quite an interesting one when you're trying to create audiences for remarketing, just to try and get an understanding of which intersections of users are more likely to convert. So you might have mobile users from a specific location, maybe someone between a certain age range or with a particular interest. And you can really hone in and compare how all these segments overlap to build very specific audiences. And just thinking about page performance. So page performance in general, you can look at views and exits, but I think exit rate is quite a good one. Some pages having a high exit rate might not always be a bad thing. So maybe the user's just looking for information. So they come to your website, they view the page, they take in the information and then they leave. But a lot of the time, you really want your pages to be leading up to a specific action. So comparing that exit rate of pages helps you realize, are users finding what they need on my website? And you might find that if you have a page with a high exit rate, you then want to go and view a Hotjar recording of that particular page, because you know your website inside out, so you know where the buttons are and where you need to click to get here and where to get there. But a user won't know that, so you might find that they're getting a little bit more lost than you would expect them to, and you can use that to maybe inform testing. So you might say, well, they're not finding the button, so maybe we'll change the button, or we'll make it bigger, or we'll change the color and things like that.
Parents and grandparents, great for this. If I ever want to test a website, I give it to my mum first, and I think, right, she's going to see the button. It's really obvious. It's bright green in the middle of the page. And she'll click the tiny little link that's in the top corner that I haven't even noticed.
This kind of moves us on to what is A/B testing. So generally with modern websites, I think we need to be doing testing quite regularly in order to try and optimize the website and improve the conversion funnels. And this will be testing largely on your funnels, but also on your main key pages, like your home page, your information pages, stuff like that. And testing can vary from a really small change. So you might want to compare how many users click on a donate button, but you might want to compare the text of donate now versus donate today. And you can run this test over time, and you can compare the click rate and the conversion rate between your variation and your control. And you can use that data to say, okay, well, actually, we got a 5% increase in donations when we had donate today as opposed to donate now. And you can use this, it's like an iterative process as well. So you'll run a test, you'll take the winning variation, you'll put that live, and then you'll test another page. And if you keep doing all these small changes, eventually the small changes add up to a generally quite large increase in conversion rate.
Don't tell me I told you this, because I'm doing myself a disservice. But you can do this, and you can do it for free. And it is surprising. It's often easier than people would think. So if you've never heard of it, there are lots of free tools. One of them that have made an effort to fill the space that Google Optimize was filling, and they shut that down, is called VWO, or Visual Website Optimizer. I'll put a link in the chat. When Google shut down their free A/B testing software, VWO opened up a free tier. They integrate natively with GA4, so you can link them. Thanks, Chris. And then VWO sends data to your GA4, but also reports on things in its own interface. And I kid you not when I say, once you've got a developer to put it on the site for you, it is a point and click editor. So you can open VWO, you can make a new A/B test, you can say, I want to do it on the homepage. It will load the homepage in your browser, and then you can click a button or a header or some text, and you can change the wording, you can change the colors, you can move it around. You can do all of that within the free tool, and I think it might give you something like up to 10,000 users a month tested, or 20,000 a month tested on the free plan. So it's fantastic. It really, I guess, democratizes A/B testing. It makes it more accessible to people who aren't developers, who don't want to write any code, anything like that. And then that integrates with GA4. So you bring these tools together, your GA and your Hotjar and your VWO, suddenly you've got a really powerful suite of, Hotjar also has a free plan, by the way, of free or low cost tools to help you improve the website and understand how people are using it.
So just how we would go about conducting an A/B test. So A/B testing is always data driven. So you never would do things like, I feel like the button would be better if it was pink. We never do stuff like that. We always try and use some sort of data to figure out what we're going to test, why we're going to test, and then we also use data to measure it. So first, you're going to analyze your website. You might find that a particular page has a high exit rate, or a particular funnel step has a high drop-off rate. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look into all of the components and the main CTAs and the buttons on that page. And you're going to come up with some ideas of how can we test this page. So you might look at interaction rates, and you might have 4 or 5 CTAs on the page, and 2 of them get really low interaction rates. So a simple test was maybe you could try removing that. And what that would do is like streamline the user journey. So there's less buttons, so they're more likely to find the thing that they need to click on. You can then test that and compare that versus your normal website. And then whatever variation has a higher conversion rate or gets users quicker or more users to the place you want to go, you then set that as the winning conversion rate. But you always want to measure it. So you measure it before you start, and then you measure it as you're going along as well. So sometimes testing, you can come up with an idea and it can be great and it can massively improve conversion rate. But sometimes it can actually go the opposite way, and something that you think can improve conversion rates could just make them drop. And that's why you need to measure things both continually as the test is running, and then also at the end to summarize, right, was this a success or a failure? And then you keep learning from that. So it really is a process, but I think with modern websites, so many websites are doing this now that you almost need to continually try and optimize to get yourself above the competition. Final thing, yeah, I know, I had to add this in.
Is this the last slide?
The main last slide, yeah.
Just go back one, because there's a really good example with a client recently, Kuoni,
Yeah.
who I think we used everything that Claire has talked about in this. So our first test with them was very light, very low key. Usually we start small with a new client, so we familiarize ourselves with the website, and just get used to using their tool if it's different. We had Hotjar telling us that, as in almost every site, very few people reach the footer. But then we had GA telling us that there were a large number of clicks on the contact us button in the footer, slightly higher than we would expect. So then we looked at that as a view to click rate, and it was extreme. It was something like 50% of people who viewed it clicked it, versus the rest of the footer is 1-2%, what you'd expect. It's people don't use it. So we hypothesized that because we'd asked people around the office to look at the site before we started our full-on usability testing in the lab, and a lot of people missed this little button that followed you around the site that said book an appointment, especially on mobile, because it just had a calendar icon. So we hypothesized that people couldn't find the button to book an appointment to visit this client, so they were going all the way to the footer to then click the contact us to find a form. So we took the appointment booking buttons and we put them in the footer, and it said book an appointment, book a video call, book a phone call. And that alone, I think it was about a 15% increase in the on-site conversion rate, just in the footer. I was astonished. I'd never seen anything like it before. I went into that thinking, it's in the footer, it's not going to make a difference. And it was huge. And that then led to a sequence of, I think, 2 more tests that were iterations on that. But it's a really nice example of all those tools coming together and working with each other to help us get a better picture of what's happening. Consent mode.
Consent mode. Yeah, we had to add it in. So I'm sure lots of you will be aware of the dreaded consent pop-ups as you navigate in just general websites at the moment. But where this fits in with GA4 is that Google have a concept called advanced consent mode, where if you set up tracking using Tag Manager, you can set all Google products, so Google Analytics, Google Ads, Floodlights, Campaign Manager, to respect user consent, but it works in a slightly different way. So if a user gives consent, they'll just be tracked as it is. Whatever they do, they're tracked. But if a user denies consent, the actions that they take are still sent to Google, but they're sent as cookieless pings. So what that means is this data is essentially anonymized, and Google uses this to create a data model to fill in the gaps for any users that you lose. So it's a nice way of respecting user consent and following the Digital Marketing Act, but still reducing the amount of data that you're going to lose by doing this. So if you have got consent mode set up, we'd strongly advise you to use the advanced consent mode. And if you haven't got it set up, or you're thinking about getting it done, I would say just go with the advanced mode, because it gives you that model data functionality that GA4 can provide. And with the basic consent mode, you won't get that. So we have some key takeaways. I'm not going to read them out, to be fair, but just what we've went through. GA4 is great. You can track everything. I would personally say track everything to as much detail as you can, but only report on things that are useful. And then you still have that data there in the background for when you need it. Make the most of product links. I think they're great in combining data, stuff like Search Console, Google Ads. When you link these products together in GA4, you do get additional reports. And I think audiences as well would be great, both in understanding the nuances of all your different users and also providing cohorts to remarket to bring users back. Just before we go, page speed insights is something that I wanted to bring up, because there used to be in Universal Analytics a site speed report, which no longer exists in GA4. And instead, we have a separate website called Page Speed Insights. Page speed is really important. And I think something like you lose a certain amount of conversions for every 30 seconds that a website has to load. I think it's something like 50% of
it's something ludicrous, like tens of percent, like 30, 40, 50%. Yeah, something crazy.
So making sure that your website loads quickly is also really important for conversion rate. And we notice things like large images and hefty videos, all of that can slow down your site. And if you're thinking, well, I want people to volunteer for me and not for them, having a site that doesn't load, most people are going to get to the site, they might wait 10 seconds, and if your site still hasn't loaded, they'll just go look for a volunteer opportunity somewhere else. So using sites like this can help you, on top of the GA data, understand like the experience of the user, because if the site is too slow, users will just leave. So I think especially if you're trying to optimize your website, adding data like this into your reporting is something that we should be doing.
This gives a great report for developers as well. The screenshot Claire's got is the top of the page, and that's a user-friendly summary. But below that are very detailed explanations of how to reduce weight, how to change the image, how to rewrite the code, things like that. It's a really useful tool.
So how can we help? Obviously, there's lots of free resources, and we do have a resource pack to share with you all. But for anyone that maybe needs a bit of extra advice, or there's something they want to do that's a bit beyond their means, we do offer varied levels of help. So we can give you a tracking audit, a GTM audit, or a full data audit, and we can either work with you on a regular basis to slowly improve things, or we can just as a one-off do like a review of your code, a review of your tracking, and get you to a position where you need to be. So just some of the services that we do offer. Again, not everything has to be about setup as well. We can do things like custom report creation. We can provide GA4 training and consent mode checks and stuff like that, just to make sure that either you've got everything set up in the right way, or to give you the knowledge to get everything set up and to use the tools in the best way yourselves. So we have provided a pack of additional resources. This combines links to Search Console, page speed insights, as well as some training materials on Google Analytics, and just some extra resources to give you some information about how best you can use GA4 data for optimization of your website. So you can follow the QR code on here, and as well, we will be sending out the slides to everyone who needs them, so you can get the QR code later as well.
There was one other question I think that I was just going to address in the chat from Katrin. The setting up what to report on is the hardest bit. And it is the bit where you can just go overboard and try and report on as much as possible. Generally, the way we approach it is, if you can, you track as much as possible. So you've got the tracking if you ever need it. You report on what matters. So there's a bit of Googling you can do. If you Google measurement frameworks, you will find a lot of predefined measurement frameworks. Google have done one. They've been around for years in the marketing world. There's one called Pirate Metrics, because it spells ARG. There's a very simple one that I like, is a goal tree. So you start at the top of the tree, you start with the main thing that drives the business forward. Often that's revenue. And then you come out of the tree and you go into like what contributes to revenue. So that might be donations, or it might be cost savings. And then you break each one down into what contributes to that thing until you get to useful metrics that you can measure. Also, I often like to look at the user journey and think about what contributes to the user getting to the final stage of the journey. So completing a purchase, completing a donation, filling in a form, and then what to measure in those steps as well. So if you Google measurement frameworks, you will get lots of them, and there are lots of blog posts on them, and that can help you define those metrics to measure as well. Any more?
The QR code, James, I think he's just trying to refresh the QR code for us. A few people have clicked in, it's not going anywhere.
James,
the joys of these things. But we will share it with everybody afterwards anyway, so please don't stress too much. We will get this information to you after the session in the next day or two. So please don't overly stress about that. Quick question for myself. If you are, most people on the call are volunteer managers and not marketeers, but there is definitely an interest there. I'd like to get started or maybe understand this stuff more. Is there an easy set of resources, somewhere to start them from, to get them around some of the terminology, which can be a bit off-putting and make them a bit nervous? Is there somewhere you would suggest that's a good starting point for people?
As a quick one, you have some training resources made by Google specifically for GA4 on the Skillshop website. We have included links to those in our resources. I really like the YouTube account. Google Analytics has a YouTube account. So you can, if you're more of like a listener kind of learner like me, you get someone which will show you the platform. So they'll screen share and they'll talk you through it and they'll explain it. And I really like the YouTube channel for, I just find it a bit easier to engage with than reading documentation.
Mm-hmm.
I've just dumped links into the chat as Claire was talking.
Perfect. Guys, we're just about out of time. A massive thank you for you sharing your time with us. We really appreciate it. The sector needs all the help it can get on this front as we try and compete with the corporate world. So really appreciate you sharing your experience and your knowledge. And we'll make sure we share your contact information. And should anybody want to take this on a bit further, I think there's plenty of people that are definitely interested in it. We'll send them your way. So thank you.
Brilliant.
Awesome.
Thank you. Lovely to meet/see everyone.
I'm going to pop the link into the chat to get everybody back into the main room when I copy and paste it. If you give me a sec. Massive thank you, and we'll see you back in the main room. Cheers, guys.
Take care, folks.
Bye, guys.